Do you remember dancing with your father as a young child? My Papa's Waltz by Theodore Rothke captures a different type of waltz between a child and their father. In this poem, there are 16 powerful lines that reflect the memory of a young boy dancing with his father. However, from the frown on his mother's face, it's obvious she did not approve of this dance. It also does not appear to be an enjoyable experience for the child either. I would like to take a moment to read My Papa's Waltz. The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy, but I hung on like death. Such waltzing was not easy. We romped until the pan slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. The hand that held my wrist was battered on one knuckle. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. You beat time on my head with the palm caked hard by dirt, then waltzed me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt. This is an example of a formal poem with a rhyme in every other line. Did you imagine this as a fun waltz? Or did you imagine it as an abusive waltz? We have outlined items of significance in this poem. The imagery in this poem allows the reader to visualize what the father was like. In the first stanza, we learn the father has been drinking whiskey, so much so that it could make this boy dizzy. In the third and fourth stanzas, the father's hands are described as scraped and also caked with dirt. This symbolizes the father works with his hands and appears to be someone of the working class. In all four stanzas, there is an illusion of abuse with examples like hanging on like death, an unhappy mother as pans are sliding off the shelf. The father is also holding on to the child's wrist instead of his hand, like one would expect if they were dancing a true waltz. The last stanza states the father was beating time on his head. Although the poem does not come out to state it is abuse, it is something that is recognized by the reader. Secondly, there are examples of duality in this poem. Duality means having two parts, often with opposite meanings, like the duality of good and evil. The first example is the use of waltz. A waltz is a very rhythmic dance. However, the father is clumsy and seems to be feared. Another example is in stanza 3, where it's mentioned the child is being held by his wrist and that his ear is scraping against a buckle. Yet in stanza 2, the word romp would indicate a carefree type of play. Finally, there is duality with fear and love, with security and clinging. Next, the reader can identify different themes as well. First, the impact the alcohol has on the family. This could be the most precious time the child has with their father. However, the mother is frowning and shows she is unhappy. In the line, "You beat time on my head," one can question if this is a gentle beat while they're having fun, or is this a type of beating that is abusive? With the amount of alcohol the father has had, and the fact that the mother appears upset, it leads one to believe this was not an enjoyable experience. The reader also sees the different roles of the parents. The father appears to be a hard worker by the description of his hands, and he's probably the sole provider for the family. The mother is introduced as being in the kitchen, which cooking and cleaning would have been the responsibilities of a mother during that time. The father is the parent that ends up putting the child to bed at night, which seems surprising after the description of their waltz. There are also examples of irony in this poem. We first see it with the smell of whiskey that's making a boy dizzy. Waltzing with someone who is drunk could also make someone dizzy. The child hangs on like death while dancing. Normally, if you're dancing with someone, you don't feel like you need to hang on for dear life unless you're scared. Romp and waltz usually present as carefree activities, whereas this seems to feel more dangerous. In summary, the poem My Papa's Waltz is a beautiful poem that demonstrates a relationship between a father and son. Ultimately, the father and son are said to be dancing, but is that really what is occurring? The father could be seen as abusive, where the waltz being described is the abuse occurring in the relationship. The father seems to be a working-class man who is an alcoholic. This being said, alcohol triggers the abuse occurring through the waltz. There are many different literary works being found in the poem, with duality, themes, and irony. Overall, the poem explains more than meets the eye. The text holds a greater understanding than just the words on the page. Thank you for listening to our analysis of My Papa's Waltz.